My mother ruined me, part 2. The next day, I moved to school. I used Pastor Samuel's money to get a very nice apartment for myself. He didn't stop testing me. This time around, he made sure he would video call me. Most times, he asked for pictures of my unglad body, and I sent it to him because of what I was benefiting from him. One day, he called me and told me that his wife would be traveling that day. Why don't you come to my place this Friday and cook for me? He asked. I went to his house. He gave me money and I went to the market. When I came back and was in the kitchen cooking, he was with me throughout, having conversation with me. I finished cooking and I served him. Sit next to me, let me tell you something, he said to me. I am a man of God, he started, and I know you don't doubt my position in the Lord, but that aside, I'm human too. Being human means you have human needs, and things of the flesh would excite you just as it excites every man. I don't want to go into details, but you know what I mean. I love you and I want you to be my girlfriend. No one has to know. I'll do things for you, get you connected to the right people so that when you come out of school, I will get you a very good job. Just say yes and your life will change, he added. I saw all this coming, so I wasn't really surprised at all. I told him to give me some time to think about it, but he wouldn't allow me. You are a grown woman now. How can you think about such a small request? So that day, right in his living room, I said yes to him. He didn't let me go back to my lodge. Even when I said I wanted to go and change into something fresh, he said no. I spent the night with him and he didn't let me sleep all night. If he wasn't on me, he was trying to keep me awake so he can do it again. I wasn't a child and I wasn't a woman who hadn't been with a man before. So everything that happened that day didn't surprise me except for the fact that he was my pastor. His wife was away for 2 months, so I was with him all through that time. I would go to his house on certain days and won't come back home. Sometimes I would go there in the morning and leave in the evening. When his wife returned from training, I couldn't go to his house anymore. But he would come for me late at night and we would go somewhere very far from home where people can identify him and do it there. We would just be in his car doing everything till very late at night. Soon he started going on trips with me, and for that to be possible, he had to give me to one of his staff member named Paul as a pretend girlfriend of that staff member. Paul wasn't a pastor, neither is he married, so he had the free will to move around with a girlfriend. Whenever we traveled, I was always found in the company of Paul until the pastor will send for me. I would be with him during the day and spend the night with Pastor Samuel. Suddenly, the guy came to resent me. He tried his best to advise me out of the relationship, but I wasn't listening to him. Then one afternoon, while I was with him, he started getting touchy. I wanted him to stop, but he wouldn't. He started talking about his feelings for me and how he wants to marry me so we can run far away from the pastor. I told him, if you don't stop, I will have no choice but to report you to the pastor. He trusts you so much, so don't let him down. We returned from that trip and immediately after I got home, the pastor's wife called me. I had her number, but she wasn't someone I talked to often. Her first question was, what is going on between you and my husband? Immediately she said this, my heart skipped. I started stuttering, but I was smart about my answer. Also, I thought, Mom, I'm surprised you're asking me this kind of question, I said. What can drive you to ask me such a question? What have you seen or heard? I asked her. Her voice was so slow but very firm. Answer my question. What is going on between you two? She asked again. Mommy, there's nothing going on between us, so my boyfriend is Paul. Paul is a staff and he's the reason I get close to Pastor Samuel. I don't know what you're talking about, I replied her. A thought flashed through my mind and something kept telling me that Paul had a hand in this. She laughed and said, I'm watching you. If my husband gets to know about this conversation, I will know, and if I get to know, then it means that what I have been told is true. Because of this, I hesitated for days before telling Pastor Samuel about it. He was stunned. How? What has she seen? Who is feeding her this information? He asked me. So I told him about Paul and his proposal to me that day. Paul wanted me and I said no to him. I suspect he might be the one feeding her with that information. He got very pissed and decided to fire Paul. I told him to calm down since that would escalate things. From there, every move we made became very calculative. He wouldn't call me on the phone or text me. Rather, he would send me an email and I will respond. If we have to travel to a place, I will travel first to that place and get a hotel room far from where he would lodge. He would then come to me immediately after he lands at the airport. That was safe, so we held on to that arrangement for months without any complaint or leakage from any of his staff member. One Sunday, his wife got the chance to preach in church, and that day I couldn't sit still. Every word that came out from her mouth was targeted at me. The quotation of the day had nothing to do with women chasing married men, but Madam found a way to make the preaching all about women chasing married men. She rained curses and the women in the church shouted in praises of her. After church that day, I sent Pastor Samuel a mail. I think your wife still suspects something, oh. Today, everything she said in church was about us. She looked at my face while delivering her message. He brushed me off and said, "That's just your mind lying to you." She preached exactly the message we rehearsed at home. I knew he was lying, but I just let it slide. We traveled on a weekend program. He calls it visitation. As usual, I traveled a day before he came. After the service that evening, he came to spend the night with me at the hotel I booked. Early morning, around 7 a.m., we heard a very loud knock on the hotel door. "Who is it?" I asked. The person wouldn't talk but kept knocking. Just when I was about to get up and go see who is at the door, Pastor held me by my hand and said, "Don't move. You have to hear a voice before you move. Or were you expecting someone?" I kept asking who is it, but the person didn't answer.